We all think we know what a dictatorship is, right? But what if the way we usually use that word is actually getting in the way of really understanding it? Today, we're going to peel back the layers and look at this loaded term, not as a political jab, but as a scientific concept. Let's see what happens when we look at it through this new lens. Okay, so here's the core problem. We throw around words like dictatorship and democracy, but often they're just emotional labels, not precise definitions. And when a word can mean anything you want it to mean, it's basically impossible to have a real analytical conversation about it. This source material for this explainer just hits the nail on the head with this. When these terms don't have a clear meaning, they stop being tools for understanding. Instead, they become weapons, right? You use them to praise yourself or to tear someone else down. The whole conversation just shifts from analysis to pure emotion.
So that really begs the question, doesn't it? If our everyday language is failing us, how can we possibly define dictatorship in a way that lets us be rigorous and scientific? How do we get past all the subjective opinions and find some objective ground to stand on?
Well, the solution, according to the framework we're exploring, is to create what's called an anchored definition. The idea is to move away from these fuzzy, abstract concepts and instead ground the term in concrete, observable things that we can actually point to and discuss. And this slide really breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you have what's called imaginary knowledge. It's vague, it's arbitrary, you can twist it however you want. But on the other side, you've got anchored content. And that is what we're aiming for, a solid core concept with fixed indicators that gives us a tool for some real, clear-eyed analysis.
All right, so here it is. This is the anchored definition we're going to work with. A dictatorship isn't just about one person in charge. It's a specific form of national power and a social system. See those two parts? There's the state power itself, the government, and then there's the whole social structure that it builds around its.
Okay, so if that's the definition, what are the actual building blocks? How can we spot this system out in the wild? To do that, we have to look inside, at its essential internal indicators.
According to this framework, it really just boils down to two key things. First, the state promotes one and only one official belief system. And second, and this is absolutely critical, it builds that belief system into the very fabric of society, into its rules and institutions in a way that actively restricts its citizens. So what on earth is a faith function product? I know, it sounds a little technical, right? But think of it as the official, state-approved ideology. It's the one big story that's supposed to give everyone a collective sense of faith and mission. This could be anything from a political party's platform that becomes the only national purpose to a specific religious doctrine that's made the absolute foundation for every law.
And this right here, this is the most important part. It's not enough for a state to just have an official belief. The real defining feature is when that belief gets institutionalized. It's when the system builds actual rules and structures that literally get in the way of a person trying to find their own purpose or meaning outside of that state-approved story.
Okay, so we've looked at the internal engine of this system. But what does it actually produce? What are the visible, observable consequences for the people who have to live inside of it?
Yeah, let's really think about that for a second. If you have a system that is designed from the ground up to limit a person's inner sense of purpose, what's the result? What does that look like in real life?
The source uses a very specific and I think very powerful word, deformation. And that's not a word you choose lightly. This isn't just about changing what someone believes. It suggests a twisting, a warping of the basic human ability to find faith and a mission for yourself.
So what does that deformation actually look like day to day? Well, you start to see citizens getting incredibly worked up, extremely agitated about whatever agenda the state is pushing at that moment. And it doesn't even matter if that agitation is real or if it's just an act to survive. The end result is the same. A person's individual focus gets hijacked by the state's agenda.
And that leads us to the final piece of this puzzle, and frankly, it's the most profound consequence of all. The harm we're talking about isn't temporary, and it's not just political. It's a deep, lasting damage to the most fundamental tool we have.
Let's just walk through this. First, a direct impairment of the ability to think clearly. Because of that, the source argues, people lose the capacity to fix their own society. And maybe the most chilling part, even when they get out and move to an open society, there's a tendency to unconsciously try to rebuild the same kind of restrictive system they just left.
So, when you put all of this together, the ultimate takeaway is this. The damage from a system like this goes so much deeper than politics. We're not just talking about people having the wrong ideas.
We're talking about a functional, cognitive impairment. It damages the actual machinery of independent thought.
What this analysis shows us is a system that doesn't just control what people do, it actively tries to deform how they think. And that leaves us with a much, much deeper question. If a system can impair the very function of thinking, what does recovery even begin to look like?